Hey guys, today we're in the book of First Chronicles chapter 7. So we are in the section of going through the descendants of Israel, of each tribe. And remember, this is all done to give hopes and for the remnant, for those who are coming back to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple, to rebuild Jerusalem after the exile, to one, remind them of the past, two, to remind them who they are, but three, to remind them of the future, that the Lord is not done. The King is still coming. This new David is coming. And so when we get in chapter 7, we get through several of the tribes, and they're not as much as detail as some of the other ones that we've looked at. And there's always something to be said. In this chapter, there's just not really a lot to be said. Just really kind of two things that I want to point out to you. In verse 12, right? In verse 12, you're going to see a guy named Hushim, the son of Ahur, okay? Some believe, well, actually, many people believe that this is a kind of indirect look to the tribe of Dan. After we read all of these, you're going to notice that the tribe of Dan is not listed in this. Some people are saying here with Hushim, the son of Ahur, is a reference, a very small reference to the tribe of Dan. Hushim, we have read about all the way back in the book of Genesis, chapter 46. And we learn that he is the son of Dan. And so then in the very next verse, in verse 13, the sons of Nephtali, we instantly see the descendants of Bilhah. Well, we know that Bilhah was the mother to Dan and to Nephtali. So even though it's just two verses, Dan is kind of in here. And some people say, well, the Bible's wrong, or some people will say, well, some things are lost. But remember what Dan did, right? Remember the descendants of Dan. They were huge into idol worship. This is where one of the temples of the north went, the golden cow. They totally turned their back on God. And so yes, this is giving some names of Dan, but I think Dan was left out of this because Dan had nothing good to offer the people coming out of exile, right? Because their whole past was integrated with idol worship and nothing of loving God. And so here, God chose to leave that out. So Dan is incorporated, but though he does not have a big section as some of the other people. The second thing I want to point out is in verse 15. The name of the second was Zelophehad. You'll remember this in Numbers. If you remember all the way back when we read with Numbers, some daughters came to Moses and said, hey, our father has died. There is no son. We're going to lose our land. Can we keep our land? And Moses said, man, that's a great question. Let me ask the Lord. And the Lord told Moses, yes, these women can own land. They can take the inheritance because their father had passed and there was no son. This is her. This is the oldest of those daughters. And so I'm just kind of connecting dots and connecting stories for you. And so we go through the descendants of Issachar, Benjamin, Dan for a second, Nephtali for a second, the descendants of Manasseh. Remember, Manasseh is two tribes. They're divided. One on the east, we've already seen. This is the western tribe. This was the tribe that was in the promised land. We see the descendants of Ephraim. We see the descendants of Asher. And that's really it. As you read chapter 7, I know a lot of these are just names and you're like, what? And you can really get into this and really kind of break this down. But a lot of these you really can't, because not every one of these names you can trace through the Bible, right? You just kind of got to read through them, but it's giving important history to remind Israel who they are, that they're still chosen by God, and that God still has a plan for them, right? So it is important, might not be as important to us today, but it was definitely important to those exiles coming back to Jerusalem. Hope that makes sense, and we'll see you tomorrow in chapter 8. God bless.